Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be talking about how to mix drywall adhesive. So basically I'm currently doing a video on how to dry line this wall here, and I'm going to be sharing some of my techniques with you, but in this video I'm just going to be talking about how to mix. So when mixing drywall adhesive, make sure you have everything to hand before you actually start. So for me, I've got my boards cut out ready here, so I know that I'm not going to have to stop halfway through and cut some boards. All my boards are cut for me for the mix that I'm going to be using now. So it's 2 bags does 3 boards is the rule that I work on. I'm going to mix 1 bag now. I'm going to put so much on, and then I'm going to do another one. So when I'm mixing drywall adhesive, I mix in 25-litre tubs. So you can mix in the yellow tubs over there, which I do occasionally. So the main reason why I use the blue buckets over the yellow ones is because I do find that the yellow ones can actually puncture a lot easier. So I tend to stick with the blue ones. When mixing with a tub, and if there's, like, say, a little bit of debris on the floor, and when you're mixing, what tends to happen with them is you can actually puncture it and get leaks. So that's why I don't tend to mix in the yellow tubs. I tend to stick to the 25-litre ones, just because they're a little bit more sturdy. And I do also find that the blue buckets are a lot easier to gauge for doing a full bag. Because this is a beginner's guide, and I believe that the best way of doing it is to doing it gradually. So I wouldn't say mix the 2 bags and just go for it. I would say mix your first bag, get that on, then mix another one. And that way you're not going to be getting too much on, and you're not going to get too much ahead of yourself as well. So the tools that you're going to need for mixing drywall, you are going to need some form of mixing drill. Now this is my Makita one. I've done reviews of this, and I think everybody knows how much I love this drill, and I've been using it for well over a year. It's never let me down, and I get to use my Makita batteries, so I'll be using that. Another thing you're going to need is, for me, I like to use my handboard and my trowel for putting on. You're also going to need a scoop. This is for getting it out the bucket, and also while you're mixing, you're going to be wanting to clean the sides to make sure that everything's mixed up nicely. And this is a really good way of gauging how the stuff is. So these are the main tools that you're going to need for mixing. Right, so now I'm going to talk about mixing the drywall. So as I said, I like to use a 25-litre bucket. So I've actually filled one of my buckets halfway. So this is the bucket I'm going to be using for dry lining. Obviously I do quite a lot of dry lining, so my bucket isn't going to be pristine because it gets used a lot. So this is my dry lining bucket, but you want to make sure that the water is clean in it. So don't use dirty buckets. This just looks filthy, but it's actually pretty good because it holds clean water. So I know it's going to be fine. So first thing is, halfway full of water, so you're looking at about there, I would say. You can go a little bit more, but that's how far I've just filled it up now. So the main reason why I mix in the blue buckets is because if you fill it halfway, that is roughly 1 bag of drywall adhesive. So it's a good gauge, so you can actually get quite consistent doing it like this way. I'm going to pour half of my bag of drywall into the bucket. You don't want to get too excited and put the whole bag in straight away. The problem with doing that is you're going to put extra strain on your drill, and it's going to take a lot longer to mix. So with drywall, the key is to mix it wet and then bring it up to the consistency that you want. Otherwise, you're just putting extra strain on your tools. So that's the best way of doing it. Obviously, if it can happen, and it does happen a fair amount, that you do put too much powder in. But then what you do then is add some water, and you're just going to want to move the water around slowly. This is just to try and save your drill. You can pick up mixers now fairly cheaply from the merchants or from B&Q, Screwfix, or your local hardware store. I'm using my Makita, and mine's cordless, but I've used plenty of the other ones, and they are good. I actually use a plastic whisk, so this is called a MixM8. This one's by Ox, but I don't think they make them anymore. I do think a company has just bought them out, so I will try and find a link for that and put it in the description. But these are paddles that I love using because it does actually mix the stuff a bit quicker, and it actually is a lot easier to clean as well. Anywho, let's get down to mixing some drywall. Right guys, so today I'm going to be using the NAF drywall adhesive. To be honest, I don't really care which drywall adhesive I use. They pretty much all do the same thing. But obviously British Gypsum do one, NAF do one, and there's a few other different makes out there. I've got my 2 bags ready here. I'm only going to be using one, but for this first mix. So what I'll do now is I'm going to open up the drywall adhesive. So you want to make sure you've got a bit of a funnel, nothing too hard about that. And then basically, I've got my bag and I'm just going to pour some. So as a rule of thumb for me when I'm mixing is, what tends to happen is after a while the powder will start to float at the top. And that's normally when I like to first start my mixing. So I'm going to grab my mixer, give it a bit of a wet, and we're going to put it in. If you can see, it goes straight in. There's not much resistance there at all. So what now I will say is let's get it moving around a bit. Make sure that the bottom's coming up. If you leave stiff bits at the bottom, then you're going to struggle later on. So you want to try and lift it up as you're moving along. I'm just going to put a little bit more stuff in now. So as you can see, it's starting to powder up again. And that's how I know that that's roughly my guide of how you keep on moving. So, you can see. So now I can feel that it's actually starting to thicken up a bit now, so I know that it's all mixing in nicely now. So I'm going to keep on going. Now obviously it's still too wet now, but one thing I'll say is this is when you get your scoop now, make sure that's wet. And what you want to be doing is, you can see around the edges, you get some powder basically, and you want to go all the way around. So you want to put a fair amount of pressure on. You want to get any loose stuff into the mix. So it's still feeling quite wet, so I want to get it a bit thicker again. Slowly start adding to it. One tip I always like to say is that when you are mixing, make sure you keep your drill clean as you're going along, because it's going to save you time later on. So I've just put it in some water, give it a quick clean. So this is the drywall adhesive now. So I'm going to show you the consistency that I like to use it at. So as you can see, so it's actually quite wet still, this, but it's just holding its shape quite nicely now. So with drywall, you can go slightly thicker depending on the walls. Sometimes you need to have thicker drywall to actually make it build out in areas that you need it to. But with this, I would say this consistency quite here is perfect for what I want to use it today. And what I'll do now is I'm going to show you what it's like on my handboard. So if you're worried that you don't know how good the consistency is, the best way is to use your handboard and trowel. I've wet my handboard, got my trowel ready. One of the tips for using plaster is that you always prime your handboard before starting to use it. So get the stuff. When it's wet, it starts to wobble. Give it a couple of things, and now it's started to prime, and now it holds much better onto the stuff. You can see here, this is the consistency that I like to use. Right, let's start putting it on the walls. So mixing, you do get quicker as time goes on. This was actually quite a slow mix for me. And obviously there was a lot of stop and starting because I wanted to explain what was going along. I actually prefer just to keep the mix rolling most of the time. So when I'm mixing, I just don't stop basically. Sometimes I'll use a scoop and I'll pour it in, but most of the time I'm pretty good at gauging how much powder needs to go in. But that's how I like to mix drywall adhesive. So a lot of people say, do it in a big tub, it's easier to scoop out on. Completely agree. This is just a good way of you knowing how much stuff to mix. So I've used most of a bag up there. That's how I do my first mix. Right, thank you very much guys. If you do like these videos, please like and subscribe. If you want to watch the continuation of this video, click on the link here and it will show you how I dry line a wall. Any comments or questions, leave them below and I will try and get back to you as fast as I can. I do videos every Tuesday, they come out. They're all on different things. Sometimes I'll show you how my progress on some of the jobs that I'm doing. Otherwise, I'll be showing you techniques and some materials that I use. And I'll also be showing you some tools as well. All right, thanks guys. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.